Okay, this is a test review. By this week, let's say Thursday and Friday, because the test might take 2 days, we'll take that test. So here's kind of your final review. Now you got equations to solve first. It says how many answers. Well, anytime we got x to the second, we know there's going to be 2 answers. I use red pen today so you can see it good. Now, what do we have for x's? Well, if I got x to the second x, I got to go through, get it equal to 0, and then do all my factoring. If I only have x to the second, I'm going to box my x's, make sure they're on one side. I'm going to get the non-x's to the other side. I'm going to divide and then square root if we have a second power. Now, with some of these, the x's are in parentheses. Now, if the x is to the second power, we're going to have to use a q variable and then a kind of a table. But if the x is just in a parentheses, I'm just going to use my distributed property rainbows to multiply through it. Okay, so this one here, it looks like all I have is x second only, okay? So that would match this category here. So I'm going to box the x's. And that's the only one I have, so I can get the non-x's to the other side, so I can plus 60, 3x to the second power, 87 plus 60 is 147. Okay, and then we divide by 3. So x to the second equals 49. And then since we have a second power, we need to do the opposite, which is to take the square root of it, okay? Now, when I take the square root, we could have the positive or we could have the negative. So in this case, 7 and negative 7 are the 2 solutions. Okay, 4x squared plus 16x is 0, so there's 2 answers. And what do we have for x's? Well, up here, we've got an x to the second power. But I've also got another regular x to go with it, so I'm going to have to use the factoring. So I make sure I have equals 0. Yep, got it. And here's the 2 terms. There's 2 of them, so it's going to be the GCF. And then I'm going to have to check that for a difference of perfect squares then, okay? Okay, GCF, you don't have the negative in front. You do have x on both of them. Now, if you look at 4, you got 1, 4, 2, and 2. And 4 divided by 4 is 1, and 16 divided by 4 is 4, so 4 is going to work, okay? So I factor out the 4x, okay? Then I go divide, so that's going to be 1x plus 4. We know that that cancels. Okay, that's not a dots because it's a plus. It has to have a minus for it to be that, okay, and even if it has a minus, it still might not be, but I know right away it's not if it's a plus. Okay, so I can get my 2 answers, okay? That's factor 1, that's factor 2. So factor 1 is 4 times x, that can equal 0. Factor 2 is 1x plus 4, that can equal 0. Okay, 0 divided by 4 is 0. Minus 4, 1x equals negative 4. Okay, so 0, negative 4. Okay, my next one, how many answers? Okay, so again, we're going to have 2. And I'm going to want to know what I have for x's, okay? So I have x to the, because that dictates to how I do the problem. X is second and x. Okay, so again, we have to use factoring. So the equation is equal to 0, setting this up to factor. Now I count how many terms, and there's 3 this time. So it's going to be the GCF. And then the t-table. Okay, so GCF, negative in front, nope. You don't have X on everything, so 1, 12, and 27. It's just 1, so put no. Okay, so A times C, positive 1 times positive 27. That's positive 27. So that's going to look for a sum of 12. Nope. 27 divided by 2, 3 and 9. Yep. Okay. Now A here, A is equal to 1. Okay. So I just need the 2 to break it down because it's 1x squared. So XX 3, 9 minus 12. So you're going to have minus 9 for sure. And that's a sum, so they'll be identical. Okay. So that's F1. That's F2. Okay, so x minus 3 equals 0, or x minus 9 is 0. So I plus 3, I get 3. Plus 9, I get 9. 3 and 9. Okay, my next problem, there are 2 answers. Okay. So I'm looking for the x's. We got x to the second power and x again. So again, we need to make sure we have our 0. And then I underline and count the terms. There are 3. Okay. So GCF and then the T. Okay, GCF, negative, no, you don't have X on everything, and then 2's the smallest, but you won't be able to divide all those by 2, okay? So that means forget it. Okay, so A times C, it's going to be positive 12 times positive 2, and that's going to be positive 24. So I'm looking for a sum of 11, okay? Nope. 2 and 12, nope. 3 and 8, yeah, got it. Okay, so you got minus 11, minus 8, and then sum means they're the same, okay? But this time A is 12, okay? So I'm going to need double parentheses, okay? So 12, and then XX, and then minus 3, minus 8, okay? So if you look at 3, and you look at 8, so 3 is just 1 and 3. 8 divided by 1 is 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 3 is a decimal. And then we're just back to 4. Now, we can divide these both by 3. Okay, so that's 4x minus 1. Okay, 12 won't divide by 8. And then 4, you can divide those both by 4. Okay, 3x minus 2. Okay, there was no GCF to worry about, so F1, F2 that. So 4 times x minus 1 is 0, and then 3 times x minus 2 is 0. So plus 1, 4 times x is 1. 1 divided by 4 is 0.25, okay? 3 times x equals 2. 2 divided by 3 is 0.6 repeating. Okay. Sorry, I can't really see that. Okay, this one, there's no second power, so I'm thinking there's only one answer here. Okay. So if I only have x only, okay, boxy x, that's the only one we have, so get the non-x's to the other side, so plus 3, 20, okay, and then divide. So I get negative 5. Now I don't need to square root, no, because there's no second power, so I don't need to square root, so that's the answer. Now that seems like a pretty basic problem, but sometimes to understand it, we need to throw ones in there where we don't need to use that. Okay, 5x squared plus 1x minus 9. There are 2 answers. Okay, and I say, okay, what do I have for my x's? Okay, I've got x second and x. So now we're back to having to check for the 0, which is there, and count the terms we have, and there's 3. So, and then the t-chart. Okay, so GCF doesn't appear I have one because a negative I don't have x on, and then it's just 1, so no. Okay, so A times C, I will be taking 5 times negative 9, and that's negative 45. So difference of 1. No, 45 divided by 2 is a decimal. 45 divided by 3 is 15. That is not 1. Divided by 4, no, 45 divided by 9 is 5. And then it's just a failure the rest of the way, so I put fail. Okay, so the t-test has failed me. So then I use my quadratic formula. So the opposite of b is negative 1 plus or minus the square root. B second minus 3 of these in a row. And I know my b is 1. And then we always use 4. A is 5. And C is negative 9. Okay, and then on bottom 2, 5. Okay. Okay, so I've got negative 1 plus minus, and then 2 times 5 is 10. Now we need to find our square root, what that would equal. So 1 to the second, I take 1 times 1, and then 4 times 5 times negative 9. Okay, so this is 1, and 4 times 5 times negative 9 is negative 180, okay? So that's 1 minus, because it's always minus, and then negative 180. Well, that's plus plus, so that's 181. Now I need to find the square root of 181, but I need to get myself a calculator because I don't have that. So I square root 181, and that's going to be 13.45. Okay, so I take negative 1 plus 13.45, click equals, divide by 10, and that's 1.2425. You can put it however you want. And I take negative 1 minus 13.45 divided by 10, and that's going to be negative 1.44 or 45, however you want. Don't get so bogged down in the rounding that the rest of the process goes away. All right. How many answers? Okay. This time we got 3 because we got x to the third. Okay, so what do we have for x's? Well, I've got x to the third power, x to the second power, and x. So there's all these different kinds of x's you're going to have to factor, but this time it's 4 terms, okay? And with 4 terms, we set up our grouping. Okay, just like that. So I've got 1x cubed plus 9x squared, negative 4x minus 36. Okay, now here you can't divide, so it'd be x squared here, okay, because you take the smaller one. And then negative 4, so you need to divide by negative, and then let's look at 4, okay. 1, 4, 2, and 2. You can divide those both by 4, okay. That's... Okay, so pull x second out, pull your negative 4 out, and that's going to be 1x plus 9, and that's going to be the same thing. They will be. So 1x plus 9 factors out. And I get x to the power of 2 minus 4. Okay, now at the end of that, you got to check for adopts. Okay, this one isn't, but this one is, because you got minus 2 times 2, x times x. Okay, so now I can solve it. I can take my 1x plus 9 to equal 0. My x plus 2 can equal 0. And my x minus 2 could equal 0. So 1x equals negative 9. There's your first answer. X equals negative 2. There's your second. X equals positive 2. There's your third. Okay, next one. How many answers? This one's just going to have 1, okay? And what's it set up like? You got the parentheses, but there's just x. There's no second power here, so I can just use my distribution rainbows, okay? So 4 times 1x is 4x. 4 times 3 is 12, okay? And then it's just a matter of getting your x by itself. So plus 12 plus 12. 28 divided by 4 is 7. Okay, next one, only x squared, okay? Box x, okay. This one we got x in a second power, so there's 2 answers. But the second power means I need to use my dummy variable q. So 3q to the second equals 18. And I'm going to want my chart here because when I get the q solved for, I got to come back with the x minus 4. That'll be brought back in. Okay, so I divide by 3. Q to the second equals 6. And then I find the square root of 6 to find what I want in for q. Okay, so 2.45. So 2.45 and negative 2.45. So plus 4, so that's 6.45. Plus 4, negative 2.45 plus 4 is 1.55. 6.45, 1.55. Okay, you can see the story problems on the next video.